Welcome to the first podcast of Potatoes Over Roses. I'm Nick, your host. The title is definitely an odd one. I'm sure you've never run anything like it, but I'm going to give you a bit of an explanation. So when I was about 14, 15, 16 years old, and the internet was still in its awkward teen ages, where video chats and all that stuff was very, very poopy in terms of video quality and audio quality. And obviously it's improved because I'm sitting here recording a version of myself on my cell phone, which whoever thought that would happen. I guess it's been going on for a while. If you've had, a phone with a camera on it for a number of years, most of us have. But the explanation, let's get into a bit of a story. This story started back when I was about 14, 15, 16 years old, and I was obviously full of hormones, and so there's all these girls everywhere, and like any teenage boy does, he tries to get their attention in their own somewhat not really unique way. And I always had the understanding that roses were something that you gave girls, because that's what people tell you to do, or you see it in social media or media or on television. You give them roses and chocolate for Valentine's Day, right? So when I was at this age, I realized that roses were kind of stupid, or I thought they were stupid. I'm a teenager. I thought roses were kind of dumb because all they do is grow, and they become beautiful, and then they start to wilt, and then they die, right? So that's kind of lame. Who wants something that just grows to be beautiful and then dies? That's kind of like, one of those dumb blonde jokes people make. They're kind of rude, and they're kind of pointless, and they kind of make fun of people for just being cute. And we don't, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to just be one element of, who they really are. And they're not just a shell with a face. No, and so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to give somebody a shell. And so I thought about it, and I realized that the best explanation that I can give someone, or the best thing I can give somebody, the best thing I can give somebody to say, hey, I'm really into you, is a potato. And granted, I've never actually done this. Although I've cooked potatoes. Sorry, that beer is a little foamy. I've cooked potatoes, obviously, for people, and what I realized is that potatoes, being this vegetable, this tuber, that when you buy a potato at the store, or you get one from your garden, and it's a nice little potato, depending on the size, the kind, whatever. The fact that there's obviously many kinds. Granted, there's many kinds of roses. We won't get into that, but potato, it grows to be consumed, right? It's sustenance. It's life-giving. It's full of some nutrients. We won't say it's a lot of nutrients, but there are, 300 something varieties. So there's hundreds of varieties of potatoes. And you can make so many different things out of them. You can fry them, you can steam them, you can bake them, you can roast them, you can sous vide them if you want to get fancy. You can make fancy dinners, or you can make basic dinners. Everybody loves potatoes. You don't like potatoes? Well, probably haven't had a good potato dish. And I realized that when you leave a potato, wherever you store it, some people put it under their sink, some people put it in a closet, some people do it the right way and they stick it in a cold storage, and it'll last a lot longer. Oops, I might have woke up the kid. Either way, that potato doesn't just rot every time. A lot of the times, you see little roots sticking up. It's grabbing for life. That potato is representing that even when you forget about it, it tries to grow. A lot of the times with flowers, when you pick them, most of the time they don't keep growing. Granted, there are some plants that will do that, but roses, we're talking about roses here. Roses will just harvest the flower off of it, put it in some water, it'll last a little while, and it just dies. Potato, you put that hunk of potato with some roots sticking out of it and some water, it's going to start growing. And then all of a sudden you have a really long root, and you can stick it in some soil, and you got more potatoes. Fabulous. So I always thought that giving someone a potato, whether it be raw, cooked, steamed, fried, or whatever, is the best way to show somebody love. And that's what I'm trying to do here on this podcast, is show you guys some love. Or, the kind of love that I know how to give. Everybody has it in their own unique way, and we're all going to do it the way we know how. Granted, some are better at it than others, and some aren't. Or some just don't know how to show it as well. Let's just say that. Like my late stepfather. He showed it in his own unique way. We'll get into, why he did that maybe some another podcast. But anyways, let's talk about the goals of this podcast. I have a number of things that I want to talk about, and I want to, if you guys are interested in it, then keep on listening and we'll get there. The first thing is trades. I've worked in trades my entire working career, whether it be cooking or farming or carpentry, or I mowed lawns for a long time, landscaping. Granted, I could have taken a different route and gone for more schooling, and I chose not to. I chose to work with my hands. And that's kind of what you think about when you think about trades, working with your hands. We'll talk about transitioning from one trade to another. Talk about people in those different trades and their different personalities. Cast typing, unfortunately, is a thing that happens in trades. Happens a lot, actually. The different kinds of people that work in those trades, etc. The next thing I will probably end up talking about in a few of these episodes is probably seasonality, whether it be cooking in season, using things that only grow locally in season, or maybe we'll get into things that only grow wild locally. That's always kind of fun. We can always talk about adventure locally and seasonally, like what can you do in June? Or obviously that's going to be a lot easier than doing things in December. Let's go fishing in June. Oh yeah, great. There's salmon sometimes. There's all sorts of stuff. You go into the winter time and you have to be more specific, because winter, there's not as many fish active. They tend to move a little slower, just like the rest of us. Then I have a really fun idea for some of these podcasts. And sorry, that's my wife. And actually, this next idea is something that I've been trying to play around with for a number of years. If you watch any of my older videos, there was a channel I had called Creating Local. I probably only have like 4 videos on it, and one of those videos is a trailer for a show I wanted to do called Shift Drinks. Now, there is a podcast called Shift Drinks, so we'll just keep the title of this podcast the same. But the name of the show on the podcast will end up being Shift Drink. And the concept, obviously, is having a shift drink with someone. But I want to have conversations with people of all different kinds of trades. So if you work in a trade and you want to talk about it, and you want to share what it's like and what it's been like for you specifically, and the things good and bad that you get from it, then hit me up. I'll post my links in the description below on the YouTube video and on the comment section, or I'll put them in the description of this specific podcast, wherever it ends up. Or I can just, we'll just go from there. We'll talk about all sorts of things. Like I have my number of trades I've worked in, and maybe you've worked in 2 or 3 or 4 or 10, who knows? The next conversation I want to get into, because I'm new to it and I want to hear from you guys, I want to share my experiences from it, is parenting. And now parenting also includes, working with your spouse, if you still have one, if you've had one, if you've never had one, wherever you are in that, how you feel about it, whether you are okay with having a beer here and there when you have children or not. Most of us usually are, but if you're clean and sober and you have children, what's the experience like with that? Who knows how many kids you might have, how it works with having more than one kid. I only have one, I have a wife and a kid and a dog. If you have pets with your children, who knows? Okay. The 5th thing I would probably get into on this podcast is life balance. I'm talking about, are you an overtime person? Do you like to work your ass off and then come home and just sleep, and your spouse has to deal with everything else? Or are you the kind of person who is strict, hardcore, only 40 hours maximum, come home, you have to spend time with your family? Or are you kind of a mix of both? Or, do you need to mix it up a little bit and give yourself a little personal time? Or do you even need personal time? Everybody needs a little bit, granted, but some people need less of it than others. I'm more of a social butterfly. I'm okay with, for the most part, hanging out with my wife. A lot of the times I would like to go outside. I don't like being inside. The pandemic definitely made that difficult, which is probably why I'm sitting here talking to you on my phone, basically. The next conversation I would like to talk about is health. Now, I have not even thought about this until basically we found out I was pregnant. Granted, I've always tried to do some exercising, and I like to be semi-athletic when it comes to cardio. I like to ride my bike, whatever. We can talk about that. We can also talk about meditation, prayer. We can talk about, Eastern versus Western medicine. We can talk about sleep issues, or who knows. We'll get into the conversations. We can even have guests to talk about that kind of stuff, because I have plenty of friends who have had health issues over the years and might even still have some of them. So we can get into that. The next topic that we'll probably be getting into in this podcast is going to be reviews. I am a nerd, and I'm sure many of you are as well. So we'll probably have a couple conversations about movies and books and even restaurants, considering, like one of my biggest trades was cooking. So we will have those conversations, and I'm sure some of you might tune into them. Who knows? Maybe. Let's see how far we can take this. The next conversations will probably be celebrations. I love to celebrate people. I love people. Not everybody does. Some people have very little hope in humanity, but for me, I like to love on people. I just want to celebrate you. Even on my birthday, I like to do things for other people. Granted, I did buy myself a very nice steak for my birthday, which is okay. Some people don't believe in birthdays. We don't have to talk about that. But we can talk about celebrating you. Okay. The next subject we're probably getting to is harvesting / foraging / hunting, fishing, growing food. We talk about growing food in the seasonality section. So we'll talk about it a little bit different. We'll talk about, harvesting wild foods and, how much you should be leaving there, how much you shouldn't. Maybe we'll get a mycology expert on here. We'll talk about mushrooms. Who knows? Maybe we'll get on some hunters on this podcast. I have a couple buddies who've been doing it since they were little kids. We get some older people on here. We can talk about that. We can do phone call conversations. Who knows? And then the last thing I want to talk about is what you want to talk about. If anybody out there knows who I am, maybe you have a question for me. Maybe you've always wondered something that about me that you didn't know and you want to know. So shoot me some suggestions. If you just want to talk about something specific and you want it on the podcast, shoot me a message. It would be really fun to talk to you. Honestly, it'd be fun to talk to anybody. So, yeah, let me know what you think. As for this intro, this is technically episode 0 because this isn't really a full-on podcast. This is just me kind of doing an intro. I think that's going to be the end of it. But for now, I'm signing off, and I will see you on the first episode. Thanks.